Hello friends, welcome to the HFY Ode, where we bring you new science fiction stories, a new world, a new adventure. And yes, there is no robotic or AI voices here, only real human voices with real human touch. So let's start this journey, and please subscribe my channel if you like the stories and press the bell icon for the latest updates. Let's have a story. Okay.
The silence didn't scare them. That was their first mistake. Her file said unremarkable. Her psych eval said low aggression index. The ambassador called her pleasantly forgettable. The thing about predators? They evolved to sound exactly like that. The observation deck of the Galactic Concord station hummed with the low-frequency thrum of 1,000 species breathing recycled air. Ambassador Vrel of the Tarthian Collective stood at the central console, his 3 manipulator arms folded in what humans had learned to read as polite attention. His primary eye tracked the small figure near the viewport, the one who hadn't spoken in 47 minutes. "Your delegation is most contained," Vrel said to the human ambassador, a reedy man named Harrigan who sweat too much for someone representing an entire planet. "The others bring warriors, poets, negotiators. You bring someone who stares at stars." Harrigan laughed. It was the wrong laugh. Too high, too fast. "Specialist Chen is our cultural liaison. She hasn't spoken since arrival. She's observant." The Tarthian's secondary eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of skepticism among his people. Observant species do not survive first contact. Curious species do. Aggressive species do. The quiet ones are eaten in the dark between systems. Harrigan wiped his forehead. "I'll be sure to tell her that." Across the deck, Specialist Mei Chen pressed her palm against the viewport glass. The station orbited a gas giant the color of bruised plums, its storms churning in patterns that reminded her of something she couldn't name. Her reflection stared back, small, brown-eyed, utterly unremarkable. Exactly how she wanted to look. Behind her, the delegation from the krill hive chittered in their chemical language, their carapaces clicking with what passed for amusement. One of them had been watching her for the entire reception. She knew this because she had catalogued every time its antennae twitched toward her. 12 times. Average interval, 3 minutes, 17 seconds. Predators always watched the quiet ones first. "We should go to dinner," Harrigan announced, appearing at her elbow. His cologne was too strong. Some attempt to mask the human smell the aliens found unsettling. The krill representative requested a private meeting. Just the ambassadors and 1 aide each. Chen didn't turn from the glass. "Which representative?" "The one who's been watching me." Harrigan blinked. "What?" "No, the first chitter. The one in charge. His second has been tracking my position for the last hour. The first chitter hasn't looked at me once." She finally turned, her face settling into the pleasant neutrality she'd worn for the past 3 days. "They're testing us. The private meeting is a trap." "Chen, for God's sake. I'm not saying we don't go. I'm saying you let me sit where I can see all 3 exits." Harrigan stared at her. She stared back, her expression unchanged. After a long moment, he nodded. "Fine, but try to talk this time. You're making us look strange." Chen followed him toward the dining hall, her footsteps silent on the deck plating. Strange? Yes, that was the word for it. The dining hall was a marvel of xenopological design, a circular room with adjustable gravity fields and atmosphere scrubbers that could accommodate 37 different respiratory systems simultaneously. The table was a ring, each species positioned at intervals that respected their cultural comfort zones. Humans had been placed between the Tarthians, who preferred distance, and the krill, who had no concept of personal space at all. Chen sat with her back to the wall. Not a wall, a viewport. The gas giant storms had intensified, purple lightning arcing through the clouds in silent, beautiful violence. The first chitter was named Orcs, a massive specimen whose carapace bore the scars of hive conflicts she'd read about in the briefing packet. His mandibles clicked as he spoke. "Humanity's application for associate membership is Premature. You have not demonstrated the qualities required for Concord participation. Harrigan opened his mouth. Chen put a hand on his arm. What qualities? She asked. Her voice was soft, not meek. Soft. The difference mattered. Predators understood soft voices. They meant the speaker had nothing to prove. Crix's antennae stilled. Biological resilience, strategic capacity, cultural density. Your species has existed for a fraction of galactic time. Your technology is borrowed. Your military is defensive, Chen finished. Yes, we prefer not to fight. The krill's secondary mandibles flared, a laugh, according to the cultural database. Prefer not to fight. The words of prey. Chen tilted her head. The Kettle Wars, 23 cycles ago. Your hive fought the Vel Concord over mining rights in the Braxis Nebula. The room went quiet. You lost 17,000 drones in the first engagement. Your queen ordered a retreat. Your species spent the next 11 cycles rebuilding. Carex's claws scraped the table. You dare... I'm not daring anything. I'm observing. Chen picked up a water glass, drank, set it down. Your species learned that direct engagement was costly. So you adapted. You developed new strategies. You waited for the Vel to exhaust themselves, then negotiated from a position of hidden strength. The silence stretched. That is not prey behavior, Chen said. That is what every species does when they're outmatched. They watch, they wait, they learn. She looked at Kirks directly for the first time. The only species that doesn't learn are the ones already extinct. Harrigan was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. The Tarthian ambassador's primary eye had dilated, a sign of alarm in his species. The krill's antennae had gone completely rigid. Carex recovered first. Your human histories show constant warfare, constant violence. You did not learn. You repeated. We repeated the same mistakes, Chen agreed, and we kept surviving anyway. That's the part that confuses you, isn't it? We should be dead. By every logical measure, we should have wiped ourselves out millennia ago. But we didn't. She leaned back in her chair. We got bored of dying and started planting gardens instead. The meal continued. Small talk resumed. But something had shifted. And Chen felt it in the way the krill's antennae tracked her now. Not dismissively, but warily. The way the Tarthians' manipulator arms stayed slightly raised, ready to defend. Predators, she thought. All of them. And none of them had figured out what she was yet. 3 hours later, Chen sat alone in her quarters, running maintenance on her boots. Not special boots, standard issue. Black, reinforced toes, scuffed from a decade of use. But the soles had been modified. A thin layer of pressure-sensitive polymer that could map terrain through vibration. Old tech. Simple tech. The kind of thing you learned to make when you spent years tracking things that didn't want to be found. Her tablet pinged. A message from Harrigan. What the hell was that tonight? She typed back, diplomacy. That wasn't diplomacy. That was you showing off. No. That was me establishing baseline. Baseline for what? Chen looked at the message for a long moment. Then she set the tablet down and went back to her boots. In the morning, she would need them. The attack came at 0347 station time. Chen was awake. She was always awake at 0347, a habit from years of hunting nocturnal game on half a dozen worlds. The first sign was the lights. Not flickering, exactly. Dimming. A power draw somewhere on the station's primary grid, pulling more juice than life support should require. The second sign was the smell. Ozone, burning insulation. And something else. Something that triggered a deep mammalian part of her brain that had nothing to do with alien politics. Fear pheromones. Krill specific. The chemical signature of a hive under attack. She was out of bed and pulling on her boots before the first alarm sounded. The corridor outside her quarters was chaos. Tarthian civilians were streaming toward the evacuation pods, their multiple limbs flailing in panic. A group of human techs huddled near an airlock, arguing about something she couldn't hear over the sirens. Chen moved against the flow. Her boots mapped the deck plating's vibration, a subtle thrumming that told her the attack was coming from the docking ring. Multiple impacts, coordinated, not random. "Chen!" Harrigan's voice cut through the noise. He was running toward her, his face pale, his tie askew. Thank God. The Krill delegation, they're gone. Their ship departed 20 minutes ago. Right before someone else arrived, Chen finished. Who? Unknown. The station's sensors are jammed. We can't get a reading on... The wall exploded. Not the whole wall. A section of plating near the observation deck buckled inward, torn apart by something that moved too fast to see. Chen grabbed Harrigan by the collar and threw them both behind a support pillar as debris rained past. When she looked up, she saw it. A creature she didn't recognize. Bipedal. Covered in scales that shifted color like oil on water. 4 arms, each ending in a blade-like claw that scraped the deck with a sound like fingernails on a chalkboard. Its head was featureless except for a single sensory organ that pulsed with a sickly yellow light. The thing turned. Its light swept the corridor. Chen pulled Harrigan down. Don't move. Don't breathe loud. Don't... Too late. A technician screamed. The creature was on him in a heartbeat, claws slicing through his environmental suit like paper. The body hit the deck. The creature's light pulsed brighter. Predator, Chen whispered. Hunting for sport. The Krill let it in. How do you... Because they left 20 minutes ago. That's not coincidence. That's bait. She was already moving, pulling Harrigan toward a maintenance hatch she'd noted on her first day. Her boots mapped the vibrations of the creature's movement. Heavy, deliberate, savoring the hunt. It wasn't rushing. It was playing. That was good. Playing predators made mistakes. The hatch led to a maintenance shaft barely wide enough for a human. Chen shoved Harrigan inside, then followed, pulling the hatch closed behind her. The creature's light flickered past the gap a moment later, then moved on. Where are we going? Harrigan whispered. Armory. Station schematic says Deck 7. There's a weapons locker near the environmental controls. You know the station schematic? I memorized it. Why? Chen crawled faster. Because I'm quiet, Ambassador. Quiet people notice things. Like the fact that the Krill delegation left behind a cargo container that wasn't on the manifest. Like the fact that the Tarthian security forces haven't responded to any of the alarms. Like the fact that the creature hunting us isn't trying to kill everyone. It's trying to kill specific people. Harrigan's voice shook. What people? The ones who know too much. The armory was empty. Chen had expected that. The weapons lockers were open, their contents scattered across the floor, standard sidearms mostly, the kind of low-yield energy weapons the Concord issued for pest control. Not pest control like the creature outside. Pest control like the small, annoying problems that didn't require real firepower. She picked up a sidearm, checked its charge. 10%, useless. Now what? Harrigan asked. Now we improvise. Chen moved through the armory with the efficiency of someone who had done this before. She found a coil of synthetic rope, a canister of industrial solvent, a welding torch with a full fuel cell, a box of emergency flares. She laid them out on a workbench, her hands moving automatically while her mind ran through options. Chen, that thing is going to find us. We need to... It's going to find us whether we hide or not. So we stop hiding. She picked up the welding torch. The flame sputtered, and then caught, a bright blue jet that would cut through most station alloys if she held it steady long enough. What are you planning? The creature hunts by light. That sensor on its head, it's not an eye. It's a photoreceptor array. It maps thermal signatures and movement patterns. Chen stripped the insulation off a section of wire, exposing the copper underneath. It's adapted to hunt in darkness. Light confuses it. So we blind it? We blind it, then we trap it, then we kill it? Harrigan stared at her. You're not a cultural liaison, are you? Chen smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. No, Ambassador, I'm not. She finished her preparations in silence, her hands sure and steady. The rope she tied into a snare, a pattern she'd learned from an old man in the Amazon, back when she was 16 and didn't know any better. The flares she rigged to a pressure plate, a trick she'd picked up from a Ulysses contract on Ganymede. The solvent she poured into a series of small containers, each one positioned to rupture when the snare triggered. What's the solvent for? Carapace. The creature's scales are organic. Acid will melt them. Harrigan was quiet for a long moment. Who are you, Chen? Really? She finished her work, checked her knots, tested the pressure plate. My file says I'm a cultural liaison. I don't believe your file anymore. Good. She picked up the welding torch. Because my file is a lie. The creature's light flickered outside the armory door. Chen positioned herself behind the workbench, the welding torch held at the ready. Her boots were steady on the deck. Her breathing was slow and even. In her chest, her heart beat at a calm 62 beats per minute. The same rhythm it had maintained during every hunt, every kill, every moment when the difference between life and death came down to a single breath. The door buckled inward. The creature stepped through, its sensor pulsing yellow light across the armory. It saw Harrigan first, huddled behind a storage locker, his hands shaking. Its claws scraped the deck as it turned toward him. Then it stepped on the pressure plate. The flares went off first, a blinding burst of white light that made the creature recoil, its sensor flickering erratically. The snare tightened around its lower legs, yanking it off balance. It crashed to the deck, claws flailing, and ruptured the solvent containers. The acid hit its scales, and the creature screamed. Not a sound Chen had heard before. High-pitched, resonant. The scream of something that had never been hurt before and didn't understand what was happening. She didn't hesitate. The welding torch cut through the creature's neck in 3 seconds. The scales blistered, melted, gave way. The thing's sensor pulsed once, twice, then went dark. The armory smelled like burned meat and ozone. Harrigan was vomiting in the corner. Chen turned off the torch and stood over the body. Her hands were steady. Her heart was still at 62. "Ambassador," she said quietly, "we need to move. There will be more." "How do you know?" "Because this wasn't an attack. It was a test." She wiped the torch on her sleeve. "Someone wanted to see what we would do. Now they know." "Know what?" Chen looked at him. Her face was calm, pleasant even, the face of someone utterly forgettable. "They know we're not prey." The station's emergency systems kicked in at 0412, flooding the corridors with acrid fire suppressant foam and sealing off the docking ring. Chen moved through the chaos with Harrigan close behind, her boots mapping the vibrations of the deck through the foam. 3 more creatures. She could feel them, not hear them exactly, but sense them in the way the station's structure groaned under their weight. They were heavier than they looked, denser. Their claws left microfractures in the deck plating that her boots translated into a crude map of their movements. "Where are we going?" Harrigan whispered. "The bridge. If we can restore communications, we can call for help." "What kind of help?" Chen didn't answer. She'd been asking herself the same question. The Concorde's security forces were hours away at best. The human fleet was even farther. Humanity hadn't been granted permission to station warships near Concorde space. They were, officially, a protected species. Incapable of defending themselves, the thought almost made her laugh. They reached a junction where 3 corridors met. Chen held up a hand, signaling Harrigan to stop. Her boots told her something was wrong. The vibration pattern was off. Too regular, too rhythmic. "Someone's pumping something into the ventilation system," she said quietly. "Knockout gas, maybe. Or something worse." "How can you tell?" "The deck is vibrating at a frequency that matches the station's air circulation fans." "But the pattern is wrong. There's a secondary harmonic that shouldn't be there." Harrigan stared at her. You can feel that through your boots?" Chen didn't answer. She was already moving toward a maintenance panel, her fingers working the latches. Inside, a tangle of conduits and wiring, life support, communications, environmental controls. She pulled out a small device from her pocket, something she'd assembled from spare parts in her quarters. "What's that?" "An air sampler." She pressed it against a vent. The device beeped twice. Tert butyl carbamate. Industrial solvent. Not lethal, but it'll put you under in about 90 seconds. Who's pumping it? My guess? The Tarthians. Their environmental systems are tied into the station's primary grid. They could be flooding the entire habitat section without even leaving their quarters. Why would they? Because they're in on it. Chen closed the panel. So the Krill let the first creature in. The Tarthians are providing cover. Someone is testing us, Ambassador. Testing how we react to a coordinated attack. Testing us for what? Chen was quiet for a moment. Admission to the Concord isn't free. Every species that joins has to prove something. The Krill proved their tactical adaptability. The Tarthians proved their defensive capabilities. The Vel proved their technological superiority. She looked at Harrigan. We have to prove something too. And someone wants to see what that something is. The bridge was a wreck. Not from the attack, from something else. The primary console had been deliberately destroyed. Its circuits melted by an energy weapon set to maximum yield. The backup systems were offline. The communications array was a smoking ruin. Chen stood in the center of the destruction, her boots silent on the deck. Around her, the bodies of the bridge crew lay in positions that told a story. Not random killing, targeted. Each body had been hit exactly once, in a location that suggested the shooter knew exactly where each species kept its vital organs. This wasn't the creatures, she said. This was someone who knew the station, someone who studied the crew. The Krill? No. The Krill are hunters, but they're pack hunters. This was one shooter. Precise, efficient, no wasted movement. She knelt beside the body of the Tarthian communications officer. The wound was in its primary eye socket, a clean burn that had cauterized instantly. No blood, no mess. Military training, Chen said quietly. Close quarters combat. An energy weapon optimized for organic targets. You're describing a soldier. I'm describing a predator. A different kind than the ones we've been running from. She stood up. The creatures outside are weapons, distractions. This, she gestured at the bridge. This is the real attack. Someone wanted us blind, deaf, and isolated. Who? Chen walked to the viewport. The gas giant's storms had intensified further, purple lightning arcing through clouds that now seemed to pulse with a rhythm that matched her heartbeat. In the distance, she could see ships. Not the sleek vessels of the Concord, but something older. Something that looked like it had been built for a purpose she didn't understand. I don't know, she admitted, but I'm going to find out. She turned back to Harrigan. Well, how well do you know the station's emergency protocols? I wrote half of them. Good. There's a secondary communications array in the maintenance section. It's old, pre-Concord, but it should still work if we can get power to it. How do we get power? Chen smiled. We steal it. The maintenance section was dark, cold, and smelled like recycled farts, the universal constant of every spaceship ever built, regardless of species. Chen moved through the corridors with her welding torch held like a weapon, its pilot light casting flickering shadows on the walls. Behind her, Harrigan carried a duffel bag full of components she'd salvaged from the armory. His breathing was ragged. He wasn't built for this, she knew. None of them were. But he kept moving, kept following, kept trusting her without question. She respected that. The trust was rare. Trust without understanding was rarer still. The array should be in the next section, Harrigan said, consulting a tablet that glowed faintly in the dark. But we'll need to bypass the primary power conduit. That means going through environmental control. Environmental control is where they're pumping the gas. Yes. Then we go through environmental control. Chen led the way, her boots mapping the deck's vibrations. The creatures were still moving. She could feel them, 3 distinct patterns, each one searching. But they were slower now, less purposeful. The hunting instinct was fading, replaced by something else. Confusion, maybe, or fear. Predators who'd never been hurt didn't know what to do when their prey fought back. As environmental control was a cathedral of humming machinery, massive conduits that carried atmosphere, heat, and water to every section of the station. The Tarthians had designed it to be beautiful in their way, everything arranged in geometric patterns that pleased their multiple eyes. Chen ignored the beauty. She was looking for the source of the gas. There. She pointed to a series of canisters connected to the primary ventilation system. Industrial-grade sedative, enough to put the entire station under for 12 hours. Can we stop it? We can redirect it. Chen moved to the control panel, her fingers dancing across the interface. Send it back through the Tarthian quarters. Give them a taste of their own medicine. You can do that? I can do a lot of things, Ambassador. The panel beeped. The canisters hissed as their contents rerouted through the ventilation system. Chen watched the readouts, her expression unreadable. There. The Tarthian section is now at 80% atmospheric sedative concentration. They'll be unconscious in about 40 seconds. Harrigan stared at her. You just gassed an entire diplomatic delegation. I just evened the odds. She turned away from the panel and headed toward the secondary communications array. Harrigan followed, his footsteps uncertain. Chen, I need to ask you something. You can ask. The file I read on you, the real file, not the one you gave the Concorde, it said you were part of something called the Extinction Program. What was that? Chen stopped walking. For a long moment, she didn't speak. The maintenance section hummed around them, its machinery filling the silence with a sound like breathing. The Extinction Program was classified, she said finally, above your clearance level. I'm the human ambassador to the Galactic Concord. Nothing is above my clearance level. Chen turned to face him. In the dim light, her face looked older than it had before. Tired, maybe. Or just finished with pretending. The Extinction Program was created after the Europa incident. You remember the Europa incident? Harrigan's face went pale. Everyone remembers the Europa incident. The creature from the ice, the research station, 47 people dead in 6 hours. The creature wasn't from the ice, Chen said quietly. It was from somewhere else, somewhere between stars. So it was a scout, sent to evaluate humanity's ability to defend itself. How do you know that? Because I killed it. The silence was absolute. I was 19 years old, a xenobiology student at the Ganymede Institute. When the creature broke containment, I was the only person in the facility with any combat training. Chen's voice was flat, emotionless. My father was a hunter. He taught me everything he knew. Tracking, trapping, killing. I used every lesson to survive. What happened to the creature? I killed it, Chen repeated, but not before it transmitted data back to its homeworld. The Extinction Program was created to prepare for their return. We trained, we studied. We learned everything we could about the species that had sent the scout. And nothing. Chen started walking again. They never came back, and the program was decommissioned. The trainees were reassigned to other duties. I was given a new identity and told to forget everything I'd learned. But you didn't forget. No, Ambassador, I didn't forget. They reached the secondary communications array, a relic from the station's early days, its components covered in dust, and the desiccated remains of some small creature that had made its home there. Chen began connecting the components Harrigan had carried, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. The creature's hunting us, Harrigan said slowly. The ones outside, are they related to the scout from Europa? I don't know. Maybe. The physiology is different, but the hunting patterns are similar. They're patient, methodical. They don't attack until they've studied their prey. Chen connected the final wire. The array hummed to life, its ancient display flickering. Which means someone sent them, someone who knows what they're doing. Who? The display resolved into a communications interface. Chen began typing, her fingers moving through menus she'd never seen before. Someone who wants to know if humanity has changed in the years since the Europa incident. Someone who wants to see if we're still capable of defending ourselves. The array beeped. A connection established. Someone who's about to get an answer. The voice that came through the communications array was not one Chen recognized. It was old, not in the sense of age, but in the sense of something that had existed for so long that time had ceased to have meaning. Human. The word hung in the air, resonant and terrible. Chen didn't flinch. "Ah, you have my attention. You killed my hunter. Your hunter tried to kill my people. I responded appropriately." Appropriately. The voice seemed to taste the word. "You are not afraid." "Should I be?" "You are alone, cut off, surrounded by enemies. Your species is considered unworthy of Concord protection. Your government will disavow you if you survive. And yet you are not afraid." Chen glanced at Harrigan. He was shaking, his face the color of old cheese. She turned back to the display. "I've been afraid before. It didn't help." "What did help?" "Patience, preparation, knowing my enemy better than they knew themselves." The voice was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, something had shifted in its tone, a note of something that might have been respect. "You remind me of someone. Someone I killed a very long time ago." "Good. Then you know what I'm capable of." "I know what your species is capable of, human. I have studied you for centuries. Your wars, your genocides, your self-destructive impulses. You are a species of beautiful monsters, and I have watched you tear each other apart with great interest. But you've never fought us." "No." "Why not?" The voice softened, became almost gentle. "Because I was afraid." Chen felt something cold settle in her chest. Not fear, recognition. The voice wasn't lying. Whatever was on the other end of the communications array had been afraid of humanity for a very long time. Afraid of what? Of what you would become if you ever stopped fighting each other and turned your attention outward. The display flickered. An image appeared, a species Chen had never seen before. Bipedal, like humans, but taller, thinner. Their skin was the color of old parchment, stretched over bones that seemed too sharp, too angular. Their eyes were large and dark and full of something that looked like grief. "My name is Saveth," the voice said. "I am the last of my kind. Your ancestors hunted us to extinction 40,000 years ago, before you had cities or writing or any memory of what you were. You killed us because you were afraid, because we were different, because we had something you wanted." Chen stared at the image. "I don't believe you. You don't have to believe me, but you know I'm telling the truth. I can see it in your eyes." "How can you see my eyes?" "I am watching you, human. I have been watching you since you arrived on this station. I watched you kill my hunter. I watched you redirect the sedative gas. I watched you build that communications array from scrap components." The image shifted. Now Chen could see the room behind Saveth, a chamber filled with displays, each one showing a different angle of the station. Her station, her movements. "You are very good at what you do," Saveth said, "but so was I once, and I have had 40,000 years to practice." Chen sat cross-legged on the deck of the maintenance section, her back against a humming conduit, her eyes closed. Harrigan paced nearby, his footsteps echoing in the dark. "We need to do something. We need to think." "Think? Chen, that thing, that creature, it's been watching us. It knows everything we've done. It's been planning this for 40,000 years." Chen opened her eyes. "See, I heard it." "Then you know we can't win. It's been preparing for longer than humanity has existed." Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. "You're thinking like prey, Ambassador." "What?" "Prey sees a predator and thinks about how to escape, how to hide, how to survive." She stood up, stretching her arms above her head. "Predators see another predator and think about how to win. How do we win?" Chen walked to the communications array. Saveth's image was still there, watching her from those dark, ancient eyes. "You said your species is extinct," Chen said. "That we killed you, but you're still here. So either you're lying about the extinction, or you're lying about being the last of your kind." "I am the last." "Then how did you send the creatures? How did you coordinate the attack? How are you watching me right now? Saveth's image flickered. For a moment, something else appeared beneath it. A schematic maybe, or a map. Chen's eyes caught it before it vanished. I have my methods. I'm sure you do. Chen turned away from the display, her mind racing. The schematic she'd seen, it looked familiar. Something from her training. Something from the extinction program files. Chen? Harrigan's voice was worried. What is it? I've seen that schematic before. It's a neural interface, the kind used to control drones remotely. So Saveth isn't on the station. She's not even in this system. She's controlling everything from somewhere else. Chen started pacing, her boots silent on the deck. The creatures are drones. The attack is remote. She's not here. Why does that matter? Because it means she's afraid to be here. Chen stopped pacing. She's been watching us for 40,000 years, but she's never come close. She sends proxies, drones, weapons. She doesn't trust herself to face us directly. You are perceptive, Saveth's voice said from the display. But perception without action is useless. Who said I wasn't going to act? Chen moved to the environmental control panel. Her fingers flew across the interface, pulling up schematics, calculating trajectories, running through options. What are you doing? Harrigan asked. Finding out where she's hiding. You cannot trace this signal. I have spent millennia perfecting my... Your encryption is based on a quantum entanglement protocol that was state-of-the-art 5,000 years ago, Chen interrupted. The Concorde stopped using it when they realized it could be cracked by anyone with a basic understanding of temporal mathematics. She pulled up a new display, a map of the local star cluster with a single point highlighted in red. Gotcha. The silence from the communications array was absolute. You're in the Braxis Nebula, Chen said. The same nebula the Krill fought the Vel over. You've been hiding there for, what, centuries, millennia? You cannot reach me. I don't need to reach you. I just need to make sure everyone else knows where you are. Chen activated the communications array's broadcast function. Her voice echoed through the station's emergency channels, through the Concorde's relay network, through every frequency she could access. This is Specialist Mei Chen of the human delegation to the Galactic Concorde. I am broadcasting from Concorde Station 7, which is currently under attack by unknown hostile forces. The attacker has been identified as an individual calling itself Saveth, last of an extinct species, currently located in the Braxis Nebula. I am transmitting coordinates and tactical data now. She paused. To any Concorde vessel receiving this transmission. The attacker is vulnerable. Its forces are remote-controlled. Its defenses are based on outdated technology. It has been hiding for 40,000 years because it is afraid. Another pause. I am also transmitting a message to the human fleet. You know the protocols. You know what to do. She cut the transmission and turned to Harrigan. We need to get to the evacuation pods. What? Why? Because in about 20 minutes, this station is going to become a war zone. The evacuation pods were located in the station's central hub, a spherical chamber designed to launch escape vessels in every direction simultaneously. Chen and Harrigan reached it just as the first Concorde ships began arriving. Not the official Concorde fleet. The ships that appeared in the view screens were older, smaller, less impressive. They looked like cargo vessels, like mining ships, like nothing that could possibly fight a war. But Chen recognized them. The extinction program, she said quietly. They kept it active. What? The program was never decommissioned. They just moved it underground. She watched the ships approach, their weapons systems powering up. We've been preparing for this for 20 years. You think these ships can hurt me? Saveth's voice echoed through the hub's speakers. You think anything humanity has built can threaten me? I think you're about to find out. The battle lasted 11 minutes. Chen watched it from the observation blister of an evacuation pod, Harrigan beside her, both of them strapped into acceleration couches that smelled like recycled fear. The pod hadn't launched. There was nowhere to go, not really, but it had a good view of the engagement. The extinction program's ships moved like nothing she'd ever seen. They didn't fight fair. They didn't follow protocols. They did things that should have been impossible. Firing through their own formations, using evasive patterns that violated every rule of space combat, targeting systems instead of ships. They fought like predators, and they were winning. Saveth's drones, the creatures that had been hunting through the station, launched from the docking ring in a swarm of chitin and organic weapon systems. But the human ships were ready for them. They'd been training for this, dreaming of this, preparing for a war that might never come. It came, and humanity answered. Stop. Saveth's voice was different now, quieter, almost human. Stop, and I will leave. I will go back to the nebula. I will not return. Chen activated the pod's communication system. Why should I believe you? Because I am afraid. The words hung in the air. Chen looked at Harrigan. He was crying, silent tears streaming down his face as he watched the battle unfold. Ambassador, Chen said quietly, what are your orders? Harrigan wiped his eyes. His hand was shaking, but his voice was steady. You heard her. She's afraid. He looked at the view screen, at the ships fighting and dying in the dark. That's enough. The battle ended at 0559 station time. Saveth's drones retreated into the nebula, their organic systems damaged beyond repair. The extinction program's ships pursued them to the edge of Concord space, then stopped. They had done what they came to do. They had reminded the galaxy what humanity was. In the aftermath, Chen sat alone in the evacuation pod, her boots off, her feet bare on the cold deck. Harrigan had gone to coordinate with the Concord authorities. The station was secure. The Tarthians were in custody. The Krill delegation had been apprehended attempting to flee. She should have felt satisfied, victorious. Instead, she felt tired. The pod's display flickered. Saveth's face appeared, older now, somehow. Smaller. You won. We survived. Is there a difference? Chen thought about it. Sometimes. What will you do now? I'll go home, plant a garden, try to remember what peace feels like. And if I return? Chen looked at the display, at the ancient, grieving face of something that had once been humanity's equal. Then I'll come back, and I'll finish what my ancestors started. Saveth was silent for a long moment. Then she did something Chen didn't expect. She smiled. You are exactly what I feared you would become. The display went dark. Chen sat in the silence, listening to the station's machinery hum around her. Somewhere outside, the gas giant storms were still churning, purple lightning arcing through clouds that had witnessed everything. She closed her eyes. And for the first time in 20 years, Specialist Mei Chen slept.